First of all, finding all the partners and companies. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, students, friends and family. My name is Ime de Jong, and as chairman of Erasmus Recruitment, I want to welcome you to this historic version of the opening ceremony. Tonight, I'm delighted to announce that two brilliant guests are here to join us. They will shine their light on a variety of relevant issues. Issues relevant for students and graduates. What should I do next? How do I make choices? And what will a post-pandemic world look like? Our first guest is the Dean of the RSM, Ansgar Richter. Following the Dean, it is my pleasure that Barend van Doorn is with us tonight. Mr. Doorn is managing partner at Ernst & Young Consulting and has a long-standing career in strategy consulting and financial advisory. But most importantly, Mr. van Doorn is an alumni of the Erasmus University and holds a master's in business economics. But before I give the stage to our guests, I would like to take a moment and comment on the incredible event that is about to begin. I would like to do so by introducing my board and walking you through several steps of organizing this year's unique and historic version of the event. As you may imagine, it has been a roller coaster from start to finish. The upcoming weeks will be filled with activities aimed at preparing students for the next step, preparing students for the leap into the world of corporate, business or banking, startups or government, tech or consulting. Over 80 companies participating in the Erasmus Recruitment Days gives everyone plenty full of opportunities. Organizing the Erasmus Recruitment Days consists of three main stages. First of all, finding the partners and companies or governmental organizations that want to participate. The second step consists of finding and informing all the students at the Erasmus University, especially when it comes to economics and business. The final steps are the days itself, the phase on which we are about to embark. Now, I might slightly be downplaying the complexity of organizing the event for over 1,300 students with over 150 activities. Although it might seem a straightforward three-step plan, I can assure you the previous year has been everything but a straightforward step-by-step plan. I'd like to begin at the beginning. So the first two board members I would like to introduce are our two commercials. Nick, could you upload the slides, please? Who together with a highly motivated part-time team set out to do the impossible. In a time of hiring stops, unseen economic downturn, and uncertainty, the commercial set out to find partners willing to commit in advance to an event that was not even materialized. Ladies, I believe under this uncertainty, you did not only manage, I believe it's safe to say that both of you absolutely excelled. Joyce, when we started, from the beginning, without recall, the first 10 minutes of calling a potential lead or customer was not about closing a deal or selling something. It was getting to know the person on the other side of the phone. This chit chat, to my surprise, only increased after the deal was closed. Monday morning calls were often filled with stories about you and the other person's weekend. You always took the time for the human at the other end of the line or the stream. In a time where physical interactions are limited, I believe this has been instrumental to the commercial success. Isabel, our second commercial. What has stood out is your willingness to go above and beyond for our clients and your targets. Your competitive mindset, wanting to achieve any goal, and ideally set a new commercial record, have both humored and impressed me. Even when some of our goals seemed very unrealistic and far, far away, you kept optimistic. In those moments, your true competitive commercial colors came to light. Ladies, once again, you both in your own way absolutely excelled. The second phase consists of reaching out to students, as I mentioned, and starting the preparations for the event. Joost, as our treasurer, played an enormous part in this organization. He was left with a difficult task to make sure financial targets were still met. Especially under this uncertainty, making cuts in costs is something nobody enjoys. However, you have been able to show that you're a beacon of confidence, oozing calmness into a stressful situation, taking a step back and focusing on the things you can influence. The second phase also consists of a marketing period. The pressure this year was enormous. The entire marketing playbook had to be rewritten, conventional methods declared useless, and uncertainty reigning during the preparations. However, Rinke, our marketing officer, set a record for the highest numbers of signups in a week. I believe by doing so, you surpassed everyone's and even your own expectations. I am sure that for the years to come, your successor will look in awe at the work you have provided this year and the countless ways and new opportunities of sending out your message. The final phase consists of the event itself. This is the phase we're about to start. Matching over 1,300 students with their interests and taking all the preferences into account. Nick, as IT, your role was vastly different than previous years. Not only did we successfully launch our new website with a fully online event, you've had to go above and beyond so that to secure that the event could even take place. Your most admirable trait, however, has been the patience you have had to time and time again explain how IT infrastructure works, especially to the rest of the team. In Dutch, there's a saying that says, stupid questions do not exist, domme vragen bestaan niet. I'm sure that you have more than once doubted this saying. Finally, I would like to thank Sarah for the immense tasks she took upon herself this year. Your ability to think of several scenarios from early on has been a key aspect to the success of this event. At the very beginning, you were the first to tell the team that COVID-19 is no excuse for our event. No matter what, the Erasmus Recruitment Days are going to be an enormous success. Quoting Churchill, character is a small thing that goes a long way. Well, Sarah, your character has been part of the success of our team. As vice chair, I could always count on your counsel, and I think it is safe to say that many of the students who participate have a lot to thank to the work you put in. By now, it is time to make room for our first speaker. Professor Richter, Dean of the RSM, so nice that you are with us tonight. For all watching students, if you have any questions for the Dean, please ask them in our designated YouTube chat box. I hereby want to give the word to the Dean and wish everyone a very well Erasmus Recruitment Days.
Thank you very, very much, Emma. It's a great pleasure to be here this afternoon. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. And before we really get into this, I would like to thank you and everyone who's been involved with this, the Erasmus Recruitment Board, the student associations that are supporting this, for the tremendous effort and the work that has gone into this. And I hope it's not just been work, but also a lot of fun, a lot of joy, and this mindset of service, to the student community at Erasmus University as well. It's, if I look at the program, it's absolutely fantastic. And I'd really like to thank you for doing this work. And it's making us at Erasmus University really proud to see our students pull together a program like this. I hope that I can be heard by everyone. Are the acoustics okay? I see someone nodding, so that's great. And I just continue. I would also like to thank Baron van Doorn from EY Consulting for being here with us this afternoon, and I'm very much looking forward to the interaction there. And of course, I would really like to thank all the participants today, this afternoon, but throughout the next few days, for your curiosity and your willingness to put yourself forward, to inquire, to learn about the recruitment situation, and for making your plans for the job market. I know that there are lots of questions on your minds, in particular in the current pandemic situation. What will the job market look like this year and in the coming years? Where is going to be the best opportunity for us? Will there be opportunities for all? Before I actually get into this, I would like to say that as much as this is a difficult situation in which we all find ourselves, I'm an optimistic person, and there is really room for hope, I think. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, it's taking its time until the vaccines are being rolled out and so on. And I recognize all the difficulties. But whenever I ask myself, how bad is the situation actually, I take us as an organization, and RSM, we have a total of 600 employees as a benchmark as well. And I can tell you, we are hiring at the moment, and so are many other organizations as well. Obviously, our primary hiring is in the academic area, and the academic job market is slightly different from other job markets in terms of its own dynamics and rules of the game. But there is definitely a job market taking place, and I wish you all the success in these difficult market circumstances, but there is room for hope. I'm obviously here as a representative of Erasmus University and of RSM specifically. So let me just say just one or two words about the university. The university, Erasmus University, was founded in 1913, and I'm not saying that in order to showcase my historical knowledge, but rather in order to say that Erasmus University was really founded as, if you will, a place of learning, of studying, for trade and commerce. That's the origin of Erasmus University, and that's why you actually have two strong schools, Erasmus School of Economics and the Rotterdam School of Management. We are kind of sister schools within the same university that have that mission to educate that next generation of leaders, to really make a contribution to society, Dutch society, international society, but also to the society, if you will, in the Randstad region. In 1970, RSM was founded, so we are actually a bit of a latecomer to this. But again, we are founded by a consortium of large international companies based in the Netherlands in order to educate the next generation of leaders. And I think we have done so far, and it's great to see so many students from RSM as well join this event this afternoon and over the next few days. But we're doing this work together with the School of Economics. And if you look at our alumni number, the numbers of alumni that we have in leading organizations, we are certainly leading within the whole of the Netherlands. There is no doubt about that. There is no other university that has more people in the boards or senior echelons of a large and indeed of mid-sized and small organizations than Erasmus University does. So that again is another reason for confidence and hope, I think. I've been invited to say a few words about myself. I've been invited to say a few words about myself, not so much in order to boast or anything, but in order to share some learning and some experience about how it is that I ended up in this particular position, as it were, today. And what kind of lessons you might possibly draw from that, what kind of inferences you could learn from that. So I'll give that a try, but please let me know if what I'm saying is entirely boring and of no interest. But when I actually did my high school degree, my high school diploma at age 19 in northern Germany in a nondescript little village, I actually took some choices that probably very few of you took, but I didn't study business or economics or any of that kind of stuff. I actually went to study theology and philosophy originally, and I was on the way to the priesthood at the time. It was only through later events in my life that I switched from theology to economics. I switched to also universities, and then later on went to London and studied at LSE, and also did my PhD in the management field. So in total, I studied for an awful long period of time, for about 10 years. But it's by no means been a linear choice, right? I mean, a linear career path that you would design ex ante in this particular way. After I'd studied for about these 10 years, I felt really it was time for me actually to learn something about the kind of companies that I had done my studies about, because I'd been largely abstract in a sense. And you're faced with a bit of a dilemma in that situation when you're kind of 29 or 30, studied for a long period of time, and what kind of companies would be so stupid enough to take you on. But let me give you some advice here, and I'm looking forward to hearing also the reflection of Barend later on this. But the only kind of companies that are open enough, at least were open enough in those days, to take you on were the consulting firms. So I went to work with McKinsey & Company, and spent 3.5 years in management consulting, and then decided to move back into academia, and that's where I've been ever since, over the past 20 years or so. I've also studied in different countries and worked in different countries. Certainly during my time with McKinsey, I worked in 5 different countries, and that was one of the great opportunities that this consulting firm gave me, to work in Germany, but also I spent another year in Great Britain, and worked a little bit in Finland, in Luxembourg, and the United States. But I did the same thing also in my academic experience. So I had the opportunity to work at INSEAD, in France, for example. I gave courses, executive education courses in India and in China and in the Netherlands and in other countries. And over the past 6 years before coming to RSM in 2019, I was actually Dean of Surrey Business School in the UK. So I'm not saying all of this in order to impress you, but also to say, don't think of yourself, your own career, necessarily as a linear path. It doesn't have to be linear at all, right? But what I would say is make time for learning and continue to invest in yourself, in your own development. The experience that I've had, has greatly benefited me. And I've done a lot of this, if you will, at my own expense in that sense, even the financial sense. So I remember very vividly when I was a doctoral student at LSE, I mean, there was a prestigious school, but I felt, I need to learn a little bit more than I can at LSE. So I actually applied for a position as a visiting scholar at the University of California at Berkeley. And they accepted me, and I went there together with our newborn child, my wife, and we used our private savings, and we really didn't have a lot of money in these days. So, what I'm trying to say here is take your own development seriously and make those kind of investments. They are really important. So one of the things that I would really like to say is, as you make your career choices, don't think primarily about the question, how much can you earn? But what is it that you can learn? That would be my first piece of advice, right? Ask yourself the question, how can I continue to learn? And what place of work gives me the best opportunities for that, right? In particular, at such a young age as you are. I would also want to say, and that links back to this thing that I said, that there is not necessarily a linear development, is have a little bit of trust in yourself. As you decide on, where you're going to start your career, ask yourself the question, intuitively speaking, where do I feel that I'm in the right place? Yeah, and have some confidence in your own intuition. These are somewhat subjective choices that you are making, and there is no one than you who can make those choices. You can get advice from others, certainly, that has benefited me greatly. But at the end of the day, it is your choice, and you need to have trust in your own intuition and in your own ability to also discern the situation as it presents itself. Another thing that I would really want to give you is, there is no such thing as failure in career development, as it were, not at all. Failure doesn't exist in my booklet, at least not as far as career development is concerned. Again, it's just this opportunity to learn. And I want to give you some examples. So I mentioned to you that I worked for McKinsey & Company, and that is widely considered to be a prestigious firm. I leave it up to others to decide whether it really is. It doesn't really matter. But I wanted to get into this firm. But with this application to McKinsey, I was rejected there first. And only a few years afterwards was I accepted. And I actually went into that second interview about kind of 4 or 5 years afterwards, after my first failed attempt, as it were. And suddenly the managing partner of the Frankfurt office who interviewed me for this occasion, he said, oh, by the way, Ansgar, you've applied 5 years ago again. And my heart sank. And I said, well, they're not going to accept me now. And he absolutely said, we love this, because if people, we've done even some research on this. Once we have someone apply for the second time, we know that they really want it, right? And typically the performance is better than those who come to us immediately after the first kind of rounds of interviews. Right? And I've had the same kind of experience in other occasions as well. I had the fortune, if you will, to have a scholarship, a small scholarship from an organization in Germany. I actually first applied and was rejected. And only 2 years afterwards, when I actually applied again, was I accepted. If you ask me, honestly, I think the first decision that they took, if I remember that process, that application process, actually they probably took the wrong decision to reject me. I think they took the wrong decision actually to accept me the second time. Yeah. So there is no such thing as failure, but it is a learning opportunity. And even if you don't achieve what you'd set out to do, right, learn from it, get up on your feet back again, give it another try, and you'd be better off from this. Another thing that I would like to say is, as you go about looking for a career, so to say, is do get out of your comfort zone and test yourself. Don't take the easy path. Definitely don't go just for the prestigious names for the sake of being associated with the prestigious name, but do the things that offer you the best experience and that you feel really drawn to. I'll give you another example here. I mentioned already that I'd studied for an awfully long period of time, but I did have the experience of an internship, and I would highly recommend you, if you haven't done so, do 1 or 2 internships. I think these can be very, very beneficial experiences. During my studies, was part of my program, the undergrad program in economics in Germany, where I studied initially, that we had to do an internship. So I actually wanted to do this in a foreign country because I never lived for an extended period of time in a foreign country. And I wanted to really have an unusual experience. So I went in 1991 to Latvia. Now, you're probably a little bit too young to remember this, but this was just after the fall of the Iron Curtain. Latvia had just declared itself independent from the former Soviet Union. And the situation, the political situation, was highly unstable. I worked for a small German kind of consulting firm of sorts. It was a group of people who hired me, as it were, and who could send this youngster, completely inexperienced, to Latvia to essentially act as a spy. And I was sent into a company that doesn't exist any longer. It's bust now, Valst Elektrotechnika Fabrika, VEF. It was at the time the largest Latvian company. And they made telephones and radios and that kind of stuff. And I was sent essentially to, find out what it is that they are doing in order to make sure or to assess whether, some German investors could buy parts of this company. I tell you, this was one of the most fascinating experiences that I ever had in my life. But I did so at my own expense. I didn't earn a penny from this. In fact, I had to pay for my own living costs and that kind of thing. I was given a room in some kind of guest house, which I shared with a bunch of mice. It wasn't exactly a comfortable experience, but it shaped my thinking, my experience for many, many years afterwards. And I'm very, very grateful for this time. So please do go out of your comfort zone and seek out the unusual situations. And then the final thing that I would say is, you make better decisions about your own career development if you have a safe basis for making those kind of decisions. If you feel confident with yourself, with your body, with your relationships, with your work, with your play, as it were, right? If you have a well-rounded personality as well. I mentioned already that we at RSM are hiring people at the moment. And whenever I'm engaged in a hiring exercise or a recruitment exercise, then we don't hire somebody who fulfills a job description only, but we hire a personality, right? Somebody who is able to somehow relate to us, a human being that I can imagine to be a team member, a team player, that I would like to spend time with. These are the kinds of criteria that I'm using in order to make my recruitment decisions, as it were, obviously on top of all the functional requirements that we also have in terms of subject knowledge and the expertise that people need to bring. A few closing comments from my side, in particular as it relates to the current economic and social crisis. First of all, yes, while the current situation is difficult, I mentioned already, I'm an optimist. And in particular, I've been there before. I tell you, in the mid-1980s and early 1990s, there was a time of very high unemployment in some countries, in Germany, I believe also in the Netherlands, in the United States even, and in Great Britain, definitely. And there was a huge discussion. Maybe some people remember kind of the work by people like Jeremy Rifkin, The End of Work, right? And there was a fear that all work would essentially disappear because it would all be taken over by computers and machines and IT and I don't know what, right? And he wrote this book, The End of Work. It became really famous. It's been all bullocks, honestly, right? I mean, it's a serious academic debate, nevertheless. The world played out very, very differently. And at the end of the day, I believe there is demand for bright young people and people of all ages as well. We have effectively in the Western countries a shrinking population, and our problem at the moment is a shortage of skills, not an oversupply of skills. So I think that should also give you a lot of trust. Now, I do acknowledge that making the first steps into the labor market, that's always the most difficult and most precarious time. So again, I would advise you get some experience, do some internships, potentially. I think that's a good way of getting into the labor market. Create some visibility for yourself early on. Make yourself in one way or another special. So have examples and proof points ready for every claim that you are making. Show some initiative as well. That's something that employers like, right? Use networking, certainly, and get the advice from others. And show not a naive, but a well-founded enthusiasm for what it is that you're setting out to do. Again, we are hiring personalities, not just CVs. So with that, I wish you all the best. Lots of courage as you make your steps into the labor market. I know that you can't fail, and I have great confidence in our students and every reason. I know that you have every reason to be confident, and you will succeed. So thanks a lot. If there are any questions, I'm very happy to take them.
Yeah, thank you very much for your kind words, first of all. Also, thanks a lot for the inspiring stories you had to tell. We have one great question from Marika, I believe. Her question was, how do you keep motivating students even during these difficult times?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it is a difficult time. I acknowledge that because we can't see each other in person, right? And that in itself obviously is an important motivational tool that we normally have. But we are doing things like we currently are doing, right? We have moved a lot of activities online. And I hope that you take advantage of what we have to offer, not only through our formal programs, but in many other ways as well. I would like to also point your attention or draw your attention to the many resources that we have put up on the internet. For example, we have a whole series of webinars, even about questions such as what is the future work going to look like? I'm speaking to you now, but I've recently made a podcast as well on the topic of change, right? All of these resources are available to you. They are online, open online courses that we put on the web free of charge, right? In particular on the Sustainable Development Goals. There are public lectures. I recently gave a public lecture on the notion of what is the future of professions going to look like, together with a consultant from Bain. And there are many other resources like that. I hope that you as students also avail yourselves of those kind of resources, and that you also reach out to us. There's only so much that we can do at the current point in time, but we are here for our students. That is our purpose. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that answer. Now I'd like to give the word to our second guest, Barend van Doorn. As I already mentioned, Mr. van Doorn is one of the managing partners at EY Consulting, but above all, of course, an alumni, one of our own, of the Erasmus University. He has a master's degree in business economics. Mr. van Doorn, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, many thanks for the introduction, and also on behalf of my colleague Josephine Maris, who is our lead recruiting for consulting. She's in the meeting as well. So thanks for inviting us. Ansgar, when I listened to your speech, I think we have a lot of common. First of all, I really like the phrase that ultimately learning is a better experience than earning. I fully agree with that. I mean, maybe in the beginning when you're young, you might deny that, but ultimately when you grow a bit older, you say, yeah, you have to keep on learning. And secondly, you lived in the US, Luxembourg, UK. I happen to live in those countries as well. I'm half German. My parents live in northern Germany, in Flensburg. Probably you know it. You went to INSEAD. I went to INSEAD as well. And last but not least, RSM is hiring. EY is hiring as well, massively actually, because the COVID crisis is tough. It's for us all personally tough. But the economy is doing well, and most companies are doing very well. Maybe a next slide. So in this, Emma, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, thanks. So in this call, I will shortly touch some personal dilemmas I had when I chosen the consulting profession, the pros and cons of consulting. And also I was asked to share some dilemmas I had during my career. Well, I feel fairly privileged to be in this call because in 1992, it's a while back, I finished indeed my studies bedrijfseconomie, specialization commerciële beleidsvorming at the Erasmus University. And I was very proud back then to finish my study. Back at that time, only 16% of the students finished their studies within 6 years. Yeah, those were the times, right? I know that from my son who studies econometrics in Rotterdam as well, that you don't have those long lead times anymore. By the way, I mentioned my son, he's studying econometrics in Rotterdam. He argues with me that economics is a kind of summer course compared to econometrics. I'm not sure about this, but I'll leave it for what it is. Anyway, I agree, Ansgar, that you keep on continuing studying. So previous boss told me once, Barend, it's nice what you're doing now, right? But please stay relevant for the firm and our clients. It means that you constantly have to educate yourself. So I acknowledge his advice. I did later on an MBA at Kellogg Northwestern University in Chicago. Continued to studying, did at the RSM answer the registered value study. Really liked that study, by the way. And finished my director's program, commissarisopleiding at INSEAD. So actually, even at my age, you never stop studying. Learning is really for life. My current role is indeed I'm leading the consulting practice of EY Netherlands. I'm the managing partner over there. And EY in Netherlands employs about 5,000 people. And globally, we have about 300,000 people. And the four main areas EY is active in is in accounting, tax, M&A, and of course, consulting. When preparing for this session, I was also asked to share some dilemmas with you, which I had during my career. And let me take you back to 1992, the year that I finished my study economics. Labor market back then was really tough. So I found a job at a relatively small company, a retail pharmacy chain consisting of 100 pharmacies. In fact, they owned quite some pharmacies in Rotterdam, one at the Goudse Singel, Apotheek Spanhof, or Erasmus at the Lusthoffstraat, etc. And that retail pharmacy chain, was owned by two owners. And well, here I was, happily working for them. And pay was great, lots of entrepreneurship, and lots of freedom. But at the same time, when I talked to my colleagues, students, and my friends who worked for large companies like Unilever and Shell, they told me about the great working environment they had, the great team outings, the wonderful learning courses, and the smashing colleagues they had. I didn't have many, so it was itchy. It was really itchy. So what should I do? Should I continue working for a relatively small company or not? So I asked advice, and this coach told me, Bernd, I think you have to work sometime for a large company, because otherwise you will never experience how it is. And if later on you will retire, you might regret it. So what I did is I did so. And I realized myself, even if it's only for 2-3 years, don't worry. It's great for your CV, because if you continue working for a small company and it ceases to exist, people might not know what on earth have you been doing. And if you have worked for a big company, it will also always resonate. Also, when you're young, it's easier to join a large company than when you're older. And also what I discover from our applicants is it's also easier to move from a large company to a small company than the other way around. So I decided to work for a larger company and became Thomson Reuters. I was starting in Luxembourg, and I was becoming a financial analyst. And immediately I had another dilemma. For which department should you actually work for? And finance at Reuters was basically registering what others were doing. So it wasn't really at the heart of the business. And the real stuff happened at the sales side. I saw that because I was registering everything. So back then, also at Reuters, you got more recognition of doing a nice deal at Reuters than properly registering what everything was happening. So I moved to sales. I thought I have to be at the core of the business. I have to be at the core of what's happening. And again, you get to a dilemma when you're in sales and in a company in a certain department. Doing the first deal, it's thrilling, and the second deal, it's great, but the third deal, you get into a bit of a habit, and you get a bit bored over time, actually, because you're doing the same over again, and you're getting in. And Angsar was already saying that you get into a comfort zone. So it started itching again. And that was the moment I decided to do that MBA in Chicago. And I realized during that MBA that, hey, maybe consulting is very interesting. So what is it in consulting? Because you get confronted with lots of questions and challenges of clients, where the clients don't really have a direct answer to it, or have a solution. And so that's why I went to go to a consulting firm and say, hey, can you help us? And I thought, hey, that's a good move. So in 1998, I said Reuters farewell, and I joined back then Anderson Consulting. Later on, it's relabeled to Accenture. And even later on, I moved to EY Ernst & Young. So again, here I was again, working for the consulting industry. Every 2 to 4 months, another assignment at a different client. And my learning curve was indeed very, very steep. I got to know many interesting people, and I built up a great network, which I actually enjoy and benefit from it up until the day of today. But here arises a new dilemma, because working in consulting, how's your work-life balance? Clients are very much demanding, and rightfully so, because they pay high prices, they pay premium for you. Are you worth the money? So constantly you have to make sure that you add value. And at the same time, with the puzzle of adding value, you grow older, you get married, you get kids, you get a mortgage for a house, or maybe the other way around for some of us. But gone is your flexibility and your complete freedom. So how you deal with this while working in the consulting industry? And it all boils down about setting priorities and having the right mindset. I know brilliant consultants who only work 3 or 4 days a week and have a great impact at clients. But I also do know consultants who are completely burned out after the first year. So people also say in consulting, hey, maybe you double the years of experience than when you join a regular company. I think in the past that was the case. I think when Angzer was joining McKinsey, the model was a bit of, hey, you are earlier there than the client and you leave later on the client, so you turn off the lights, right? No, those were the days. I don't think that's the case anymore. I mean, if you look at other clients, they're really are on the ball and are working hard as well. So it's not about putting the hours in anymore, but it's making sure that you have the impact and that you have the right value. And the clever ones of us, they do that quite well, and they get their work-life balance in order. It's a way of living. When I joined the consulting business, I thought, hey, I'm going to do this for 1 year, maybe 2, well, maximum 3 years. And I think that's the case for most of us who join the consulting industry. On average, people will stay 4 to 5 years and then move on. Is that bad? No, that's fine. That's how the whole thing is structured as well. And during those 4 or 5 years, you get a great learning experience, you build up a nice network, and you gain lots of experience. And by then, you have also seen several companies from the inside, and you can judge yourselves for which companies you want to work for or not. And I see that most of our employees, they ultimately choose for a job at one of our clients. And of course, you have those dinosaurs like me, who are now more than 25 years in the consulting industry. And why on earth are you doing that? Well, I can give you a very simple answer to that. It's because of the constant new challenges, constantly new clients. And if I look back, I didn't have a single work week which has been the same. And I think I've seen more than 100 different companies from nearby. So you're constantly pushed out of here you go again, the comfort zone. At the beginning, being pushed out of the comfort zone, that might be awkward, but you get used to it. And more importantly, it's very, very rewarding. Maybe I share with you 3 examples of what consulting is all about. I mean, it's a container definition, and I think with some examples, it brings it more alive. I've also have a recent example. It's called HEMA. We all know HEMA from the shopping streets and from the HEMA rookworsten. Well, HEMA had a problem. It was owned by Marcel Boekhorn and had a lot of debt, which caused some continuation problems. So they had to refinance it, but the current debtors, they weren't agreeing with it. So they had to change the situation, and they had to get into a new ownership. And a consortium of buyers consisting of Barcom, and a venture capitalist, and Jumbo, all know Jumbo, they showed interest, the Van Eert family. In order to buy HEMA, they needed to refinance a whole lot. But the bank said, hey, we're not sure if we want to finance you, because we first want to see a business plan. We want to see what the roadmap is for the next 3 to 5 years. And here the consortium asked us, EY, can you help us making that business plan? Unfortunately, I cannot share the details of that business plan, of course, but I only can tell you that the business plan was okay, and that it was enough to convince the banks to grant the financing to the consortium, and HEMA was bought by Parcom and Jumbo. It's a very typical assignment in consulting this one. Another example is the famous Belastingdienst, the tax authorities. The Belastingdienst is in fact a huge company. They are collecting 200 billion euros every year. I don't know of any company in Holland who has a turnover of more than 200 billion euros. Many things go very well at the Belastingdienst. However, if something goes wrong there, it's a big political issue. As we have seen in the toeslagen affair. I mean, the toeslagen affair is less than 0.5% of the operational business of Belastingdienst. But what happened there had a huge impact on society and on the Belastingdienst itself. So the Belastingdienst, that also another other big issue is that with all the new regeringsmaatregelen, the government measurements, they couldn't implement those because the whole IT environment couldn't cope with those changes. So and over the years it had been become a very complex environment. So they turned to us and they said, hey, can you analyze why it has become so complex? And secondly, can you come up with solutions so that we indeed can cope with all the changes in the legislation and in the tax legislation, and that we can propel and help propel the Dutch economy? Very nice assignment. It took 3 to 4 months. We interviewed more than 200 people, and the report has just been released, and it will be presented in the Tweede Kamer and will be discussed over there. So if you're interested, it's all public domain, so you can look at it. But I think another nice example of what consulting is about. And the last one, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. This is the Brunel sailing boat. The Brunel sailing boat was participating in the Volvo Ocean Race, which is a sailing race of more than 45,000 nautical miles. And it's touching 6 continents. The finish of the last Volvo Ocean Race was in The Hague, and EY actually did sponsor this boat, which you can see in the picture. And to cut a long story short, it's a long endurance. And after 9 months of sailing around the world, the Brunel boat finished 2nd in The Hague. And when they finished 2nd, of course, it's a great achievement. They weren't happy because they wanted to become 1st.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but there seems to be a minor problem with the camera, with your camera, Barend.
Yeah, better?
Oh, better. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, very good. And so they want to become 1st, and they reached out to us and said, hey, we have so much data. They had about more than 60 sensors on board. They have data on currents of the sea, the heights of the wave, the air and sea temperature, etc., etc. So basically, they asked us with a group of data scientists to see what could be done. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, and the lag, there were about 11 lags, and here you see on the left-hand side in the picture the lag between Cape Town to Melbourne, 6,630 miles. And we fully analyzed this route. We did a complete sensitivity analysis, and we found unknown correlations between the setup of the boat, the outside circumstances, the speed, the distance, the route, etc. And when we were adapting these knowledge, we could identify, and that's what you see in the red dots of that line between Cape Town and Melbourne, that they could have significantly increased with a different setup, the speed and the time needed to overcome that distance. And we calculated that, and in fact, they would have won several days. And this would have meant that they wouldn't only have won that lag, but they would have won the overall Volvo Ocean Race. And what you see here is that data is becoming more and more important. Same thing for the Formula One. The massive amount of data there is phenomenal. You see it also in soccer. More and more data is entering that world. So I I think I'm conscious of time. I just want to share with you 3 examples. I can share you also a nice example of cybersecurity and how an attack from Iran was discovered, and that they were about to steal nuclear confidential information of a company here in Holland. But maybe I will do that next time. A bit of a cliffhanger. I said in the beginning, consulting is a way of living, if I look at our firm, the average age in our firm of our employees for consulting is around 29, 30 years old. So if you can go to the next slide. That means lots of parties. And here you see, let's work hard, but it's all play hard. And here you see a nice group photo of a roaring 20s party. In fact, I can't wait for having a roaring covered after party, but hopefully that will, maybe in the summer. And also, if you go to the next slide, please. There's a lot of outdoor activities, and for example, skiing, etc. And maybe for some of you, it might almost be like a continuation of your student time. Mind you, all these pictures were, of course, pre-COVID. Anyway, I do hope that I've given you a bit of insight of what consulting is about. I shared with you some dilemmas I had during my career, but most importantly, I do hope that you finish your study. And actually, in fact, I also sincerely do hope that my son will finish his study in Rotterdam as well. And actually, I really don't care if it's economics or econometrics or any other study. I think an important message to all of you is, despite COVID, despite the stress we have, despite the crisis we have, there's a war of talent going out there for people like you. And to give you some numbers, only at consulting in the Netherlands, I'm looking for 100 consultants for the next 6 months. So not only RSM is recruiting, we're recruiting as well, and we're not the only one. Lots of our clients are recruiting as well. I wish you all lots of success with the finalization of the last years of your studies, and also lots of success with the applying for a job. It was a pleasure joining this meeting, and if you have any questions, please reach out to me or Josephine. Hans-Zacher, back to you.
Thank you so much. Of course, EY is also one of our main partners this year, so they are heavily at the days themselves, and they have several opportunities. Students have several opportunities to meet them. I believe now it is time. Barend, thank you so much once again for your time and for your words. I love the example about the sailing boat. But by now, I think it's time to go to our last 2 speakers of the evening. As many of you might know, Erasmus Recruitment was founded by the Study Association of Economics and Business. And as a testimony to that beginning, we have 2 great supervisors from these 2 study associations who would like to give a word to all students participating, and also to all companies participating. Ladies and gentlemen, Martijn and Aniek.
Hi everyone, my name is Aniek Vuurmans, and together with Martijn, I've had the privilege to supervise the Erasmus Recruitment Board 2021. As supervisors, we started this year not fully aware of both the challenges and opportunities such a unique year will bring.
In 1983, Elton John released the song I'm Still Standing. Although a steady classic in the top 2000, never has it been so high in the list until this year. And rightfully so. The past year has challenged everyone involved in ways we didn't see coming. But after the months we've had, we can proudly and wholeheartedly say we're still standing.
Both the pandemic and the launch of a brand new website and concept of Erasmus Recruitment made this year completely different. You've had to develop new ways to reach students and organize an event that for the first time has been held completely online. But that's not the only thing that has happened for the first time this year. This has been the premiere year of the official Erasmus Recruitment Board. We would like to say a word to each one of the board.
First of all, to the chairman, Imme. I don't know whether you do this to everyone or because because we have seen each other so often over the last 8 months, but I've never met anyone who picks up the phone with the same greeting every single time. One of the main responsibilities of any chair is keeping the group aligned and motivated. Over the last months, we've seen you grow so much in this position. Every time something unexpected happened, you kept your cool and made sure the whole group remained positive.
Thanks to your structured communication skills and goal-oriented focus, you succeeded in guiding the group towards the goal, setting up a whole new edition of virtual Erasmus Recruitment Days. You did very well, and we would like to thank you for that. Then, Joost. We all know you have your quality in the field of eating worstenbroodjes. But this year you've shown that you're a great treasure as well. Budgeting around this year is extremely difficult. Not only having to work out multiple budgets for all the scenarios, but also having to do with an ever-changing plan for the days. Although it has taken some time to get the budget approved, you've managed to create an up and running budget before the start of the Erasmus Recruitment Days. You kept your cool, and during the meetings, you had your eyes on the facts and figures and explained every detail. Your pragmatic way of working has resulted in the maximum achievable in this turbulent year. Well done.
Now, Sarah, for the people who have never been involved in organizing an event on this scale, you cannot imagine the details that come into play. We've come to get to know Sarah as someone who can plan her every move for the coming weeks. The resilience, care, and attention to detail you showed when the event format changed time and time again is something that each of us can learn from greatly. The event has not fully started yet, but you've done an incredible job already. Thank you so much.
Then the commercials, Joyce and Isabel. In the history of Erasmus recruitment, there haven't been commercials that got so many companies as you did. In the beginning, no one would expect that you would complement each other so greatly. Leisure news from the one end was often immediately compensated by great news by the other. And when it wasn't, Joyce, her exceptionally infectious laugh, or Isabel's persistence, immediately turned frowns into smiles. It was a strange year, but because of your perseverance and positive vibes, you've succeeded in putting down a list of high-quality companies. Well done, girls.
Then Nick, our IT man, we will never forget the day we met you on the Goudse Singel. After this cheerful first meeting, you immediately showed the focus and dedication you have in your work for Erasmus recruitment. We really appreciate your helpfulness, focus, and flexibility. You always made sure you had your affairs in order and provided a well-filmed and streamlined platform. You are solely responsible for the perfect operation of the newly launched website. And for that, we want to thank you. You did wonderful.
Rinke, in a year that doesn't allow you to promote Erasmus recruitment physically on campus, that forces you to promote with limited resources. And besides that, you've shown that you can still excel and show an amazing job. You reach so many students because of your creativity and out-of-the-box thinking. No student in Rotterdam could have missed the ads, either online or physically. You even managed to get Erasmus recruitment in the living rooms of students and to keep Erasmus recruitment warm under 500 students in Rotterdam by putting saddle covers on students' bikes. Your hard work has resulted in awareness for Erasmus recruitment and in an amazing number of students signing up for the days. Well done.
Again, this year marks the first year of the Erasmus Recruitment Board. It marks the first year of an event hosted completely online. The first year with the new website and the first year with only online subscriptions. A record year in terms of companies contacted and online promotion. And now even attendees to the opening ceremony. When we look back at this year and at what we have achieved together, this is what we will remember and take with us wherever we're going. Not the hurdles that challenged our goals, but the solutions we provided to reach and accomplish them. Thank you, Erasmus Recruitment Board, from anyone who will find their perfect job here. And now, Imme, you would like to say a final word?
Yes, thank you very much. Once again. Yes. Right, okay. Thank you very much, Martijn and Nick. At the very end, a minor inconvenience, but once again, we will continue. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. I'd like to thank all the students, all the companies for the trust and the motivation they've given us over the past few months. It has been incredible to feel, from the very beginning when we called the companies, the enthusiasm and the trust they had in our plans, and we've always really feel backed by our partners. And also during the marketing period, the enthusiasm of all the students to take part, to get out there, to meet new companies, to reconnect with companies, it has been really motivating for all of us. So on behalf of the entire Erasmus Recruitment Board, I'd like to thank everyone and want to wish all participants, both companies and students alike, a very well recruitment days. Thank you very much.